Hi guys, welcome to another Rossi audio video. Today we're gonna go back to doing our review, and today we're gonna do this little, well, not little, but this silver front right here. It's a Scott 370R receiver. For those of you who have been following me or my channels or YouTube, Facebook, whatever, all of you will know that Scott is a brand that I like a lot for many reasons. For many reasons. I like the R series that Scott came out with. And Scott had a lot of things beside receivers. They had amplifiers, they had integrated amplifiers, and so on and so on. I have, beside this 370R, I also have 335R, and I think I have featured that one on this YouTube channel in the past. So go back and take a look. And I gave that one very good reviews. If I remember correctly, I said it felt way more powerful and had a warmer sound than what I have, that I was competing against it and what I was putting it up against. I think I tested it up against a Yamaha. So what can you say about the 370R? Well, it's way more powerful than the 335R. Almost double. It's almost double. And for like 65 watts, 70 watts, something in that area, it's not going to be like a monster receiver as many others. It's not going to, and it's not the top of the line. You have bigger models than this one. They also have a 390R, which is, I have heard that one, and that one is even more powerful than this one. But this is not far off that 390R, that's for sure. I want to just say something about the Scott products that was made back in the 60s and 70s. They always had a good design. I like the design on them. Many will say, well, a receiver is a receiver, they look the same. Well, they kind of do, and they kind of don't. I like the layout of the Scott, where they have placed the knobs, the switches, and everything like that. And I also like the layout of the dial. I just did a quick cleaning on it before I tested it, so it needs a better cleaning, both inside and on the outside. It could also benefit from being re-veneered. So I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to take the time to put this one back in good shape. Now, sound-wise, let's start with power. And power-wise, like I said, it is way more powerful than the 335R that I have. This one can drive fairly good speakers, and I tested it on these certain Vegas here. These are the N12 three-ways. Well, I can take the well, stuck. Oh, it's a three-way with a 12-inch woofer and mids and tweeters. I also tested them on these the Fisher XP1, and sounded great on those. I also tested them on, I don't know if you can see it back here, but I can take it down for a moment. I also tested them on these bookshelf speakers from Infinity, and sounded very good on that. These are the RS2. Oh, let me put that one back up there. So, yeah, it's maybe a little bit overkill for those Infinity, you might say. Not really. They made those Infinity RS2 really shine. So that's a good receiver to use on smaller bookshelf speakers as well. Although it has power to drive bigger speakers. and that's why I hooked up the XP1 from Fisher, and I was very, very satisfied with the sound from them, and I'm also very satisfied with the sound from the Cerwin-Vega N12. The best sound I got from these three speakers was from the Cerwin-Vega N12. Where Cerwin-Vega N12 with the 370R outperformed the other ones is, of course, the Infinity could not compete with when it comes to like low frequency and bass. The same with the XP1. I also feel that the sound from the 370R was more detailed with the Cerwin-Vegas. So the Cerwin-Vegas was a very good fit for that receiver. Now these are the HED or head, which is like high energy design. So these Cerwin-Vegas was not made for. They were made back in a period of time where it was not like needed to have huge power amplifiers. So these Cerwin-Vega speakers, and these are one of the few models that I can say, and I would recommend that, yeah, you can use anywhere between 50 and 200 watts, and they will sound amazing. And that's what that Scott really brought to the table. It brought enough power to make any of these three speakers shine, but especially the Cerwin-Vegas. And it also had that typical Scott sound, being warm, being very good on the low frequency, but it also had a crispness, and it had a side to it that was really good with the tweeter and the upper mid-range, and it had that crisp, detailed sound. The mid-range was very good with him, I think it comes from some of the thing that Scott did back in the day. They kind of like, I think they underrated their amplifiers, and they kind of like put more in there than what the spec sheet is telling you. So yeah, they sounded fantastic, all these speakers on that Scott, but like I said, the best result was with the Cerwin-Vegas. Now, you might say, well, 60-65 watts are not that powerful. How big of speakers do you think this receiver can manage to drive? Just for fun, because I get that question a lot. So just for fun, behind these Cerwin-Vegas on the bottom here, which is the D7E, behind them, they need to be refoamed, so I didn't do any test on them. But behind them, I have the Cerwin-Vega LS10, which is a smaller woofer than what I have tested some of the other speakers with, but it's a different type of speaker. It's more of the modern lineup from Cerwin-Vega that can take more power, and they're more power hungry. And even with the LS10, the result was really, really good. And that's a testament to the receiver itself. Now, why I favor Scott so much over many others, I don't know. I am kind of like a little bit hooked on the brands that are very overlooked and underrated, and that goes when it comes back to the 70s and up to about 82, 83. I like the brands that were kind of like overlooked for some reason, and Scott is absolutely one of them in today's market. Scott is one, Sherwood is one, Onkyo is one, Realistic, Toshiba, stuff like that. I feel that they have more to give than some of these other more mainstream brands, such as Sansui, Marantz, Pioneer, Yamaha, and so on and so on. I feel that the Scott is maybe one of my favorite brands, regardless of what it is, if it's a integrated amp or a amp and preamp combo or receiver, if it's their solid state or their tube things. It is absolutely one of my more of my favorite brands, along with, like I said, Sherwood and Onkyo and Toshiba and stuff like that, and also Techniques. But I feel that the Scott has more power than both Sherwood and Techniques. Maybe except for the bigger Techniques like the SA 800 and 1000, which are powerhouses. Um, so would I recommend the Scott? Yes, I always recommend Scott when I come across them. Of course, there was a point in time where Scott suffered like many others, and they got sold. That changed hands, production changed, and this became evident in the late 80s. So since the late 80s, Scott is more or less like just as any other ordinary brand. Not much to scream about, not much to run after. But I want to say like Scott up until like 84, 85, because they extended it for a couple of years there that compared to many others. But you can be safe to buy Scott up to about 84, 85. And this receiver right here comes with its A and B and A plus B speaker selector. It also has 3 tone control knobs, bass, mid, and treble. And it has filter, low and high. Of course, volume and balance. It has a loud counter, mode select, stereo mono, FM mute, tape, of course, monitor and copy. And then, of course, a selector that can select between AM, FM, tape, aux, phono, stuff like that. And then, of course, the tuning dial. So it's very, very, very basic, but it still has more than some of the smaller models. It's a bigger receiver, not maybe when I say bigger, not maybe wattage and stuff like that, but physical size. It's wider than most. It's deeper than most. Like I have some Morans up and down here. I have some Kenwood, and they're way smaller. I have some Realistic and JVC over here, and Techniques, and they're smaller in size, both depth and width. So it's a bigger chassis receiver. It's where one of the models that you step up from, and it's way bigger than my 335R. So most receiver brands or most stereo audio brands, when you get to a certain point in their amps and their receivers, the cabinet size goes up, and that's evident with the 370R. Negatives. I can't really come up with any negative things about Scott. Anything is favorable, and here's why. You get a lot of product, and you get a good sound, you get a lot of power, and this is, I want to say it again, I want to stress this. Most Scotts that I have tested that are solid state feels like they're more powerful than what they're rated for. So I think they're underrated from the factory. So when you buy a Scott, you get good looks, you get good quality, but you also get good power and you get good sound. And you get all this for a fraction of a price than what you have to pay for Sansui, Marantz, Pioneer, and some other brands. So you get good value for money when you buy a Scott. They have a big range of receivers, and they have a big range of other products as well. And it is one of the sleeping giants. Not that it's a giant when it comes to wattage, but it's a giant when it comes to performance and what it gives you. So don't shy away. If you have the chance of buying a Scott receiver or amplifier or integrated amplifier, and if it's in working condition, jump on it. If it needs work, no problem. Many Scotts that I have seen can easily be fixed. A lot of other brands, you will have problem finding some parts, but not with the Scott. I have never had a problem sourcing parts for Scott receivers or Scott products, so it is a safe way to go. Even if buy something that needs work. If you can get it a little bit cheaper, then you're good to go. Now, price wise, I want to say that when you go on eBay and you look at receivers or integrated amps or amplifiers from the 60s, 70s, and let's say the 2 or 3 or 4 first years of the 80s, if you look at the prices that other brands are selling for, and you compare the Scott up against that, however, I want to say this, in the last 12 months, the prices on Scott has gone up a little bit, but it has gone up on most brands. It's because of this hype that is going on. But still, you can get Scott products and Scott components or all-in-one like a receiver for about 40 to 50, 55% less than what you pay for the other big brands. It used to be you could get it for like, if someone, let's say someone was asking $1,000 for a Sansui, you could go and get a Scott that was comparable to that Sansui for $300. Or if there was a $500 Sansui, you could get something from Scott for $150. I see Scott today listed, and it depends on the model, of course, but anywhere between like $25 up to like $600-700, depending on model. And if you compare that to other brands, it's half the price, or if not even more, less than half the price. So it is absolutely a good investment. Future, I can only see that with time, and it has already started, but as time goes, more and more of these other brands are going to price themselves out. Not the brands itself, but the sellers. Because the hype and the craze is so big, and sellers today are like putting a premium on most brands or most models from certain brands. That will be like Pioneer, Sansui, Marantz, Macintosh, and a few others. So the premium that you pay for some brands is not what you pay on Scott. So I feel if you buy it today, let's say you're going to sell it 2-3 years down the road, you will not lose money. I think you will, in fact, you can flip it for a profit. And that's the beauty that I like about brands like Scott, Sherwood, Onkyo, even old Denon, and maybe even old Nod products. Realistic is in that group, Toshiba is in that group, JVC is in that group. Techniques used to be in that group, but they have started to become more expensive as we have gone along. The last 12 months has been really a price hike on most. Although I will admit this, and that is over the last month and a half, but that's because of the summertime. Most prices have stagnated a little bit and stopped, and it's been flattened out. But the sales are not. Most sales during summertime, that being late June to about end of August, is always a little bit slower than the rest of the year. So the prices might be picking itself up after August and go back up. But that's the beauty of Scott. You can get it for a fair price compared to the other brands. So it's absolutely worth an investment. That's all what I had to say about this Scott 370R. It's absolutely a worth. It's absolutely worth what you can get it for. I think this one you probably have to run about in good working condition, because there's like conditions issues as well, and the prices are like, of course, based on condition. But if you can get a fairly nice looking one that is in good working condition, expect to pay somewhere between $200 and $350 somewhere for a Scott 370R. But then again, if you compare that to another one, let's say Pioneer or Sansui or Marantz, you probably, for those brands, you probably end up paying like $500, $600, $700, $800, $900. So if you can get your hands on a Scott, go ahead. Until next time, take care.